The gym went quiet, not from fatigue, not from routine, from something these women almost never experience: genuine, involuntary surprise. Diana Taurasi, Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson. A group of athletes with combined decades of elite competition stopped mid-drill to watch a 22-year-old step back to the logo and release a shot like the distance meant absolutely nothing. And that moment, that specific, unplanned, unorchestrated moment, may have just shifted the balance of power in the biggest labor fight women's basketball has ever seen. If you've been watching this story and sensing that there's a layer nobody is explaining, you're right. What leaked out of that Team USA training camp in 2026 was not just a highlight, it was an unintentional demonstration of leverage that landed directly inside a negotiation that was supposed to go very differently. Hit the like button right now if you want the full picture: the basketball, the business, and the part that has league executives and union leadership quietly rereading their position papers tonight. To understand why that practice clip carries the weight it does, you need to understand exactly how Caitlin Clark arrived at this moment. The scouts who evaluated her in high school called her too slow, too slight, too reliant on her shooting. She wasn't on Duke's radar. She didn't crack anyone's top 10 recruiting list. The professional evaluators whose entire job was to identify generational talent before it fully developed looked at Caitlin Clark and said, solid college prospect, probably 4 decent years, nothing more. They missed it completely. She committed to Iowa in 2020. Not a powerhouse program, not a WNBA pipeline. A school with a loyal but modest fan base and years of distance from producing a marquee professional player. Her freshman season, she averaged 26.6 points per game. And the same people who underestimated her in high school found new arguments. The Big Ten wasn't the SEC. The competition wasn't elite enough. The numbers were hollow. Then her sophomore year arrived, then her junior year, then her senior season, where she broke the all-time NCAA scoring record, a mark held for 44 years by Pete Maravich, a player who operated without a three-point line and against a fraction of modern defensive complexity. She didn't edge the record, she broke it clean. And the people who had been wrong about her twice went silent. By the time the 2024 WNBA draft arrived, she wasn't a basketball story anymore. Her final college game drew more viewers than any men's or women's college basketball game in the modern era. Bars that had never put a women's game on screen reserved NFL Sunday real estate for her. The Indiana Fever selected her first overall. And from that first professional game, the financial structure of women's basketball began changing permanently. Fever games sold out arenas that had been half empty for years. Opposing teams reported attendance records when Indiana was on the schedule. Sponsors who had been ignoring the WNBA for decades started returning calls. The player professional scouts dismissed as a decent college option had become the financial engine of an entire league. And that reality is the exact foundation of what played out in that training camp gym. Team USA camps are controlled environments. Coaches manage the narrative. Media gets narrow windows. There is no room in the national program structure for unplanned stories, and yet the gym could not contain what happened. When footage from the 2026 camp began leaking, when the reactions from veteran players spread across social media, people didn't pay attention because of the play itself. Spectacular plays happen at that level every single day. People paid attention because of how the veterans responded. There is a specific expression that appears on an elite athlete's face when they see something they were not prepared for. It is not excitement. It is not applause. It is a brief, involuntary stillness, the body processing information the mind wasn't expecting. That expression was visible across that entire gym. The drill itself was structured and repeatable, exactly the kind professionals run hundreds of times each season. Clark caught off a screen, pump-faked twice to freeze the defender, stepped back to the logo, and released with zero visible effort. No additional breath. No gathering of energy for a shot that most professional players would not attempt in a live game situation. She just rose and let it go. The distance meant nothing, because apparently to her it genuinely doesn't. Let's separate what you just watched from what it actually means, because that is where this story leaves sports entirely and walks straight into a boardroom. Drop your take in the comments right now. Do you think the veterans in that gym understood exactly what they were watching? Because the evidence says they did. And so did a very specific group of people monitoring that footage from a careful distance. The WNBA Players Association entered the 2026 CBA negotiations holding a position they believed gave them real leverage. The logic was straightforward. Without a deal that met their financial demands, there would be no season. The veterans who shaped the league's culture over the past decade were unified behind that position. They believed the owners could not afford a canceled season. They believed they held the outcome in their hands. What they failed to account for was where Caitlin Clark would be while those negotiations played out. She didn't post about the labor dispute. She didn't give critical interviews. She didn't engage with the veteran players who had been openly hostile toward her during her rookie season. She showed up to Team USA camp, put on a USA uniform, stepped onto an international stage, and played basketball. That was the entirety of her move, and it was devastating to the union's position. Here is what the owners saw when that practice footage spread globally. They saw the one player responsible for the WNBA's $2 billion valuation operating completely outside league jurisdiction, on a global broadcast in front of an international audience, with no labor conflict, no toxicity, and no drama anywhere near her image. They saw that the asset they had built their entire business model around was available, performing and generating audience engagement with or without a WNBA season in progress. If this kind of layered analysis is why you keep coming back to this channel, consider joining as a member. Your support is exactly what keeps us going deeper than the headlines. And there's a lot more beneath this one. TNT Sports had already purchased international rights specifically to broadcast Clark during Team USA competitions. The same network that had quietly stepped back from its unrivaled investment following a ratings collapse had built a contingency plan that most people missed entirely. If the WNBA season got delayed or canceled, TNT still had their audience draw. They still had the content their subscribers were actually tuning in for. The union believed they were threatening the product. TNT had already insured against that threat before the threat was even made public. The union's fundamental miscalculation came down to math. A WNBA season without Caitlin Clark generates limited television interest, limited sponsor activity, and limited gate revenue. A WNBA season with Caitlin Clark generates billions. The owners understood that equation completely. Their objective in this negotiation was never to satisfy the union's demands. It was to protect the one asset that had transformed the league into a serious financial product for the first time in its history. And that asset was already abroad, untouchable, putting on a performance that was spreading across every platform on Earth, while union press statements were generating almost no engagement at all. The veteran players brought leverage to a negotiation where the other side had already walked out of the room. What the footage from that practice ultimately revealed is not that Clark is elite. Elite players enter women's basketball every generation. What it revealed is that she is genuinely irreplaceable in the context of this precise moment, when the sport had just crossed the threshold into mainstream relevance and needed one athlete to carry it through to the other side. Athletes who generate that kind of cultural gravity come once in a generation, sometimes less frequently than that. The veterans in that gym knew it the moment she made that shot. Their involuntary stillness wasn't about the distance of the shot, it was recognition. They understood that the chapter they had built and controlled was closing, and the person closing it wasn't doing it with a press release or a podcast. She was doing it by being impossible to ignore. When the dust settles on this negotiation, through a deal, a shortened season, or a full restructuring, the league that emerges will be built around market value, not locker room hierarchy. The era where veteran influence shaped league culture through seniority and unwritten rules is giving way to something the market has already decided twice. Once when Clark's rookie season shattered every viewership record in league history, and again when Unrivaled collapsed without her presence. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. We're tracking the fallout when this negotiation actually lands, and the implications for the players who drove the strike narrative are significant. The link to our financial breakdown of the new WNBA ownership structure is in the description right now. The footage from that Team USA gym will be remembered, but not for the shot. For what every veteran in that building silently acknowledged when they watched it. The sport they built is now being carried by someone they never fully accepted, toward a future they cannot stop. Revenue has a name, it has a number on its back, and it has a shooting range that stops practice cold.